Hello everybody, welcome to the second episode of the 52 cast. In the first video that I made, I showed a picture of my first ever render, and straight away I got called out. People were saying, there's no ways that's your first render, it's impossible, it's too good, that is not your first render. And technically you're right, it was my second render, because I did make the donut first. But it is my first self-made, self-actualized render where I didn't follow a tutorial. And generally speaking, there's three things that make a render good. Good lighting, good composition, and a good model or models to go into the scene. Now, if you're doing something like a character, you might want to understand anatomy, proportion, and forms. And if you're doing something stylized, you might want to have a good sense of color theory. But there really is one simple little thing, and no, it isn't clickbait. There is one thing that you can do that requires no extra skill that you can do right now that will take your work from basic to good to great. And that one little thing is attention to detail. Now, that might sound simple, and it sounds simple because it is, but not enough of you are doing it, and it's purely because, no offense, but you're lazy. We're all lazy at times, but the difference between a poor render and a great render is hard work and dedication and attention to detail. So you don't have to go out and do hard surface modeling courses. You don't have to go and learn 10,000 hours like the masters would have you believe. All you need is a keen attention to detail. Have reference images and take that reference and apply it to your work with commitment. It's as simple as that. So we're going to pull up that first render of mine. We're going to go through a few of the simple details that take it from being basic to good to great. And while I don't like to toot my own horn, I do think it is a good render, and I do think it is a very good render for a first render. So let's take a look. Okay, so here is the render in question, my first ever render. Now, think of your first render. It was probably a single element on a plain background, and there's nothing wrong with that. We all start somewhere, and we grow from that point. But if you look at this render, I could have, for example, just made the monitor and keyboard and put it on a desk and called it a day. But I wanted more. I looked at my desk and I wanted to add every single element on it. I wanted to use actual textures. So yes, those books that you see are actual books on my actual desk. And I wanted to try my best to create accurate materials. The truth is, I spent a long time on this render and paid great attention to the details, which would take it from being a basic render to being a great render. So let's take a look at some of the little things that help that happen. Okay, so here we have the work open in Photoshop, and let's take a look at a few of the small little details. So if we look over here, we've got this kind of lifted edges, and I've actually done it over here on this magazine as well. And, you know, we could have just had this exam pad lying flat on the table, but by adding in these little elements, these little things, you're not only helping sell a sense of realism, but you're also creating a story. You're showing something that's been used. And it's the same thing with this chewed up pencil part of the story, and the fact that the eraser is lying on top of the cable. All of these things shows that, you know, this pencil and this eraser was actually used to draw this drawing that I scanned in. And, you know, we've got little details like a fingerprint on the putty, and although you can't see that right now, it's there, and it all helps to form the story and form the realism that takes the render from a basic render to being something that it's interesting to look at. Your eye wants to explore the picture. And like even like this little guy over here, this is some of my own original artwork that I scanned in and created a little sticker out of it. And I took the time to handwrite these post-it notes. And again, it's all just, it's an attention to detail. It's not just a computer, a keyboard and a monitor sitting on a desk with a black background. It's something more. I've taken the time to make it something more. Now, this is by no means a perfect render. We've got a lot of things going on in here that are frankly quite terrible. And for example, if we look at some of the topology here, I've got no idea why I've got so many loop cuts. This corner is horrendous. Things like the jar have got absolutely no bevel to it, so when you see it, it looks incredibly sharp. So there's plenty wrong in the render, but there's also a lot going on that's right. For example, this little fidget cube, I've actually modeled it in two separate pieces, and that's because the fidget cube sitting on my desk is molded in two separate pieces. So if we change the camera angle and we render it out, we'll see that little seam, and that little seam adds to the sense of realism. And even we've got all the little buttons on the Wacom tablet and the little light, and in rendered view we've got the logos and all of that. And all of that comes together to just create something more than a floating object that most people create for their first render. Okay, so I just wanted to draw a bit of a comparison from my first ever render to the render that I most recently completed. And you can see once again that my commitment to detail is there. Every single little monitor has got a different picture on it. Like everything is unique. The drawers are like, there's no textures that are replicated. Each one of these things is different. And we've got little random elements lying all over the place, bunched up pieces of paper and crushed cans and cigarette boxes, and all of those things. Once again, I might be repeating myself quite a bit, but it's important. It's the sense of detail that sells the image. And let's just pop out of this one for a second. So here we've got some close-ups from the same scene. And the point that I want to illustrate is that because my scene is so dense with detail, I can move my camera to pretty much anywhere in the scene and take a snapshot and capture something that's interesting and unique. And I build it like this on purpose so that I can move the camera around the scene. And if I can skip to another image, you can see that we've got enough detail in the scene to carry it, and even some naughty pictures that I wanted to help sell the realism. So he has another different angle, and you can see the amount of detail that I've put into this PC board. And again, we've got little stickers and stuff, detail that's unique to each and every little individual element. Check. Okay, so the great news is that you can literally open up Blender and apply this right now. You can sit down, open up your reference, and take that reference and apply it to your work, and just put in that little bit of extra commitment, that little bit of hard work and dedication, and it will pay off. It will take your render to the next level. It's about studying what you see and replicating it. And yes, sometimes you might need some technical knowledge on how to effectively replicate it, but simple things like putting in a background, putting in the desk surface, putting in extra elements is already going to take your render to the next step up. And so that was just something I wanted to share with you guys, and this is going to be an ongoing series. So if you have any ideas for videos or suggestions or anything like that, let me know and I will address it. Otherwise, if you enjoyed the video, I am going to do the whole please subscribe and like thing, because it's the only way to get the video going on YouTube. And please support the channel. I enjoy doing it. It's been a pleasure. Cheers.